Welcome to NuWu Sessions, where we invite guests from different corners of the Vegas cannabis industry. We sit down to share a VIP table package in Nevada's very first cannabis consumption lounge, only here in the Vegas Tasting Room. Come check us out.
What up, NuWu fam? In this episode, we have the president of Fleur Cannabis, Mr. Evan Marder. In this episode, we discuss his background in the Vegas cannabis community, current and future plans for Fleur's cultivation, and much, much more. It's only here on NuWu Sessions, so let's get into it.
All right, guys, welcome back to NuWu Sessions podcast. I'm your host, DJ.
And I'm Tom.
And today's episode, we have a very, very special guest. Before I introduce, please make sure that you go onto our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share, show all your friends, show everybody that smokes weed that we do this thing, you know?
100%.
And on this episode, episode 12, a very special pod, we have the president of Fleur Cannabis. We have my man, Evan Marder. Welcome to the podcast, brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. Like, Fleur is one of our more favorited flowers here. I'm a huge fan of your Great Monster, of your BTY OG.
Nice.
You guys have tons and tons of great strains, man.
Thank you. Yeah, the BTY is brand new, too, so that's good to hear about that.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Well, newsflash, we're going to be smoking some today.
There we go.
So
Awesome.
So we want to kind of deep dive, kind of show the people at home more about you and your background and what your operation position is over with Fleur. But before we jump into that, we do want to feature a couple of the things that we do have here in the Vegas Tasting Room. We have a couple of cannaritas.
Nice.
And Miss Raven will go ahead and give it some details.
So we are feeling the summer vibes now. I've got an ocean water right here. Who wants that one?
For my man Tom.
All right.
ocean
I got a
water.
strawberry mango canarita.
For my man Evan.
Here you go, Evan. And the shark bite for Mr. DJ.
shark bite, huh?
Yeah.
a new one.
All
Exciting.
We just
All right.
we just
Cheers.
remade one.
Cheers, gentlemen. Hell yeah.
Appreciate you for coming on, man. Seriously.
Well, that's good.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Hits every time.
Nice.
So you can find these drinks here at the Vegas Tasting Room, 5 milligrams a piece. We try to make it a compliment to the smoke, but you know you're gonna enjoy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
1,000%. So, Evan, we want to get more into you and kind of your background and dive into what you were doing before you got into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, before you got into the cannabis game, what industry were you in, or what was your background prior?
Hospitality. I was a Fleur bartender on the Las Vegas Strip for 15 years before I started Matrix. So, yeah, I started with a company called Kahunaville.
Yes, sir.
Out of Wilmington, Delaware. That's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
And in 2001, I moved out here. I was actually in Delaware. I was director of operations with Kahunaville, and I moved out here. Was going to originally be a manager, but decided after I found out what bartenders make out here, being in the union, and I was only 31 at the time, and said, you know what? Instead of managing, I'd rather get into bartending for a while and just go out to Vegas and have fun.
Why not?
And so I had to. Back then, I had to learn how to flip bottles around. A Fleur bartender is a performing bartender.
Right.
So I had to learn how to do that back in 2000, and back around 1999 and 2000. And I moved out here and was a Fleur bartender at on the Las Vegas Strip at Kahunaville and Treasure Island for 15 years.
From the TI. Yeah, I did read about that you were at Kahunaville for about 11 years or so, correct?
15. No, 15.
Oh,
15. 15 on the Strip. And then I
Wow.
started with the company in 1994. So I actually had over a 20-year career with Kahunaville. Yeah, I was like their longest-lasting employee by probably 10 to 15 years.
That's crazy, man.
Wow.
Hey, that shows your longevity and your belief in the system, man. That's cool, man.
Yeah, especially, I mean, coming from a bartending background myself, though, I mean, that's a long time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially you doing the Flare.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
man.
It was a grind, and I was
I'm
a day
sure.
shift, and I actually had it made. Well, as far as bartenders go, because I came out here opening a new restaurant, and I was grandfathered into the union, in the culinary union. I was senior bartender at Kahunaville, so I was number one.
Crazy.
And so in the summers, I would work out at the pool, which was awesome.
I bet.
Right.
I bet.
I have
100%.
stories for days about that.
For
and
sure.
then, and then of course, and then the off season, and then during the year too, I would work on the inside bar, and that was the Fleur bar too. We didn't have to do Fleur on the outside bar, but that was more of just volume drinks, 10 hours a day of just pumping out drinks.
For sure.
Inside was more performing for people and all that good stuff.
Which did you prefer? Were you an outside guy or were you an inside guy?
Outside.
For sure. For sure.
Outside with the girls in the bikinis, man.
Oh,
yeah,
for
dude.
sure. Why
Hell yeah.
not, man? Why not? It's the city, man. And actually, because you do have the bartender background, what do you think of our drinks? How did our bartender
Actually,
do?
really good. She did a great job. Not too much grenadine in there. I would say that this is an excellent job.
Yeah,
Hell
I
yeah,
appreciate it, man.
Much appreciated.
We'll
Absolutely.
make sure that we'll let Raven know as
All
well.
right,
'Cause,
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, I like it, man. It's a good tasting margarita.
Hell yeah.
Perfect,
Hell
man.
yeah. So were you a cannabis user during all those years as a bartender too, or?
Oh yeah, I started using cannabis when I was 16.
Gotcha.
So
Hey.
I started growing very soon thereafter.
Right.
But yeah, I was an everyday user pretty much since the time I was 17 years old.
There you go.
Moving out here was the longest period of time that I went without cannabis. It was like a month before I was able to find a dealer.
Right.
Right, for
And it
sure.
really sucked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just got to walk Fremont Street. You find somebody.
Right. And then and luckily, one of the main reasons, well, I shouldn't say one of the main reasons, but one of the reasons I was comfortable moving here was because Nevada had dropped their insane laws against use of cannabis.
For
And
sure.
and I think that happened in 1999 or 2000, where they legalized medical use here.
Yes, sir.
And
Right.
once that happened, I felt safe to come here. And I got my card way back in the day when it was really hard to get.
Right.
But that's, soon after moving here, I bought a house in 2003 and started growing really soon after that in that house.
Damn, that's crazy.
100%.
So being in that industry for so long, what made you make the transition from the hospitality industry to the cannabis industry?
So that's a really good question. It's kind of a loaded answer for me. But first and foremost, I've just always been passionate about cannabis. I've always loved growing it. And I always, from the time that I was growing it medically, when California built their model for, home growers supplying dispensaries, I was hoping that Nevada would adopt that same model.
For sure.
So for years and years, I was just at home growing, hoping that was coming along. So it was always an industry I wanted to be a part of. But then on the other side of it, being a bartender for this long and being in the hospitality industry, and this is not me talking poorly about doing that as a career. I think it's a great career to have, especially out here in Nevada.
For sure.
For me personally, going into that business, going into that casino every day, seeing like the graveyard shift walking out and like older guys in their 60s slumped over and just, and working with lots of bartenders over the years and seeing where that life led, I just wanted to steer away from it,
For
you know,
sure.
and that was really one of the main motivations for me was, I need to get out of the hospitality industry. I'm not passionate about it. I like doing what I do, but it's not a passion of mine. And then
For sure.
when cannabis became an actual industry, I said, that's what I've always wanted to do in life, and that's what I want to do now. So that's why I basically, gambled everything I had to try and start a company.
For sure. Man, that's a very important message, too, because some people, they get stuck in a job or career that they are no longer passionate about. They'll keep driving, man. But, yeah, sometimes you do got to switch lanes for you to find that happiness.
For me, it was a tough call, too, because I was making really good money.
Yeah.
But it's also very political out here. And if you look at Treasure Island now, by the way, Kahunaville is no longer there.
It's gone.
So, yeah. And so that was another part of this, too, was when Treasure Island was owned by MGM, we kind of had a handshake deal with MGM that they wouldn't put other types of restaurants and other profit centers that were bars around our restaurant. And then when Phil Ruffin bought Treasure Island, he tried to buy Kahunaville out. And they said, well, we want $1 million for every year left on our lease. And there was 19 years left. And he basically told them to go pound sand and then did everything he could to drive us out of that casino.
Jeez.
He put a bar at the top of the escalator. We were at the bottom. And he put a bar at the top of the escalator to serve the same types of drinks. He put another tropical restaurant in there. There was all these things that he did that showed me that the writing was on the wall that place only had a certain amount of time left.
For sure.
And so that was another driving force. Is like, oh, shit, well, I'm senior here, but I'm going to be in my 40s, and what am I going to do next? I'm going to be looking for a job on the strip again as a bartender in my 40s. That doesn't sound like something I really want to do.
For sure.
So that
For
was
sure.
also a big part of it.
That makes tons of sense, man.
Yeah,
Makes
man.
sense.
I mean, the nightlife, you're right. It's a very good job out here, and it's a very lucrative position. There's a lot of people doing it. But the longevity of it, you know what I mean? Especially if you are a cannabis user. I mean, for me personally, the more I smoke, the less I drink, even though I was a bartender for years, I got to say, since I've been in the cannabis scene, I don't miss the service industry. I mean,
Yeah.
I miss some of my friends. So I guess that lifestyle to a certain aesthetic and a nostalgia sense, but you're right. The older you get, the more you're like, cool, do I want to be doing this for the next 10 years?
Just like everything else, you outgrow things, you know?
Exactly. The only part I miss about it now is that I didn't have to take my job home with me at night at that place, you know, and now I do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you know, but that was the really nice part. But other than that, I don't really miss a whole lot of it. The camaraderie of other bartenders and, you know, and the Fleur community, that was actually a really cool thing. I could talk about that for days, but I won't. But moving out here, Las Vegas was basically the only place in the world that was doing Fleur bartending at actual bars, right? And we had a bunch of different bars here, and it was really just starting off, and all of us competed in the same competitions and everything, and we all became really tight-knit, you know, friends. And so that was a really cool part of being part of that community. But in 2008, when the economy tanked, all of the sponsorship money, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of the sponsorship money for Fleur competitions dried up. And so guys that were making, you know, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just doing competitions, that all stopped. And then it became more of a job, and then it wasn't as much fun after that.
For sure.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
For sure. That sounds like it just sucks the fun out of it.
It really did.
To be honest.
You know, and then you had a bunch of guys, it's kind of sad, but you had guys like really good bartenders that were making a living competing, having to go to like places like Russia and competing, and then getting completely screwed over by club owners. Like I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about the winner over, and like they competed in a place like Russia or Czechoslovakia, and they got screwed out of their prize money.
Wow.
That sounds like the Olympics, slab boxing, almost everything. No, just
pretty much, yeah.
That's how it goes, though. That's how it goes.
Before we move on from Kahunaville, I do want to ask, because you were there for such a long time, what's your favorite memory there, and who was your most notable celebrity guest, or any guest? Honestly.
Wow, good question. Man, so my most memorable, God, what's my most memorable thing? I probably can't talk about it on podcast.
For sure. At least not on this one. We'll take you to another one.
I could, like the thing, you know what's funny? Like the first thing that popped in my head when you asked me that question was, and this is kind of a gross story, but like, so I'm working New Year's Eve one night. Like I worked New Year's Eve like for years and years and years. That was a very lucrative, you know, bartending night. And one night, I remember this one New Year's Eve I was working. There was this girl in front of me. She was sitting at my bar, and there was this dude like in a suit, like talking to his buddy. He had his back to the girl, and I just see the girl start going like she's gonna puke. And next thing I know, she puked all over this guy's back. And she just looked at it and just turned around and walked away, and he didn't even notice. Like, I'm like, I tapped this guy like, yo, man.
You might want to go check yourself out, right?
Just imagine trying to turn.
So who was my most notable celebrity? There was a lot of them. But man, gosh, the one that was most... I am totally having a brain fart right now. He was the lead singer for Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I'm a big fan of his, and now I can't remember his name because I'm on a podcast.
Right.
It's hard to think some things really quick. Right. But yeah, there was a lot of people that came through there, a lot of B-list celebrities. There was like baseball players. There's this one time a famous Yankees player was sitting at a table, and we were all like, we think that's so-and-so. And the other guy's like, no, it's not him. And he yells out the guy's name just thinking that it wasn't him. And the guy looks over all pissed off, and his wife comes over and it's like, don't ever say my husband's name out in public like that.
Man.
Gosh, but big celebrities that came through there. Man, you remember, Jesus. God, this is way before you guys' time, but like Sanford and Son, now forget it. You guys don't remember that guy.
I remember the TV show. I never watched it.
There's a bunch of different like celebrities that came up in the '80s. Like Emmanuel Lewis was at my bar, and like these, like you know, like stuff like that. But like nobody big. Like the people that played at like you know in MGM properties that would stay there, and they never came in down to our restaurants. They'd always kind of like I remember like Paul McCartney was in Treasure Island, but we were like, oh, hopefully. Oh, you know who the biggest one was? John Elway. John Elway, I met John Elway.
He's a big man.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Yeah. Like, I was actually pretty surprised how big he was. He also had a big pot belly at the time, too. I was kind of like, whoa, John Elway. But, yeah, he's like 6'5". Yeah. I didn't realize he was such a big guy.
He's a big guy, man.
He was a big dude.
My uncle used to play with the 49ers, so we got to meet a couple of them. Man, just looking at him, he didn't even know he was quarterback.
Yeah.
You would think that he was a linebacker or something.
Right. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. And it's funny, NFL players, you got time for a side story? I'll tell you a side story real quick about NFL players. So my cousin back, like I said, grew up on the East Coast. Cousin of mine gets married in New York at the Marriott, like at the Meadowlands, right? And So this is way back in the day. This is before you guys' time. When we had the Eagles. I'm from Philadelphia,
Right.
that area.
Yes, sir.
The Eagles had a coach named Rich Kotite, and Rich Kotite had gone to the Jets. Rich Kotite was a terrible coach,
yes.
right? But he
I
had gone to the
remember with
Jets. So I'm in this hotel at the Marriott on a Saturday, and there's all these big dudes walking around the hotel, and I'm in this wedding, and like there's these giant guys walking around. I'm like behemoths, like men that I'd never seen like this big, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? Why are all these big dudes in here? But anyway, so I'm in the wedding. We had a break. I'm in a tux, and I want to go up to my room to get high.
Right.
And I get in the elevator, and all these dudes in there with Jets gear, like Jets suitcases, Jets jackets, and I go, and I'm just thinking like they're fans and whatnot. And I say to them, like, so what do you think of your new head coach, Rich Kotite? And they're like, and I in the same breath I go, I'm from Philadelphia, man. This guy sucks. I can't believe you guys took him. And the guy goes, well, I'd like to comment, but I'm his assistant coach. And like right then the elevator door opened. I'm like, all right, see you guys
Later.
Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Pretty wild.
I can talk,
I
sorry.
wasn't. No. You're perfectly fine. I wasn't around the Kotite days, but man, yeah, the Jets had some terrible coaches.
And they still suck.
1000%. Before we start moving on, I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit more of your background when you created Matrix. But before we did that, I did want to bring out one more package. It's one of our VIP packages that we do serve here in the Vegas tasting room.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about cannabis, but in order to do that, we should probably smoke some, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Why not?
All right, guys, we've got your Jerome Baker bong right here. We've got some BTY right here, better than yours, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
I did not know that.
knows.
That's
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Better than your OG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was amazed by how much limonene is in there.
It's a really good cut.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Limonene's my favorite.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no.
I was going to say that's one of the few strains that Fleur brought in as a clone.
Oh,
The majority
I see.
of strains that we have in house, we've grown from seed. But this was a black market strain that you can't get seeds from. And we knew it was popular in the black market, and we knew somebody with the real cut of it, so we brought it in.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
where that came from.
There you go.
I'll do the pipe of the BTY.
Ooh, let's go. Let me.
I think that's what's in that tray right
I'll
there.
start breaking this down.
It's been a while since I did a bong rip of flour, so I don't want to embarrass myself.
No worries. No worries.
I'm an indica guy. I'm going
I'm
to
a-
smoke this LA Con.
Yeah.
That's me.
All right, please. Yeah, you can pass that along too. I'm a dab guy these days.
There you
mainly.
go.
I mean, I still
Yeah,
smoke
man.
a lot of flour, but yeah, mainly if I'm doing a water pipe, it's going to be a dab rig for sure.
man.
Yeah,
For
it's just
sure.
way smoother.
Yeah, we got the student glass. We'll be smoking some wax here in a
Okay.
little bit, especially out of this
I'm
guy. We got
excited for
the
that.
G Pen through the student glass. We got the Dr. Green Thumb collab. This is
Oh,
personally
sure.
one of my favorite looking ones. Just the
Same.
green and gold's a nice aesthetic, you know.
Yes, it is.
Kind of fits our MO here in the taste room a little bit, right?
1000%. 1000%.
But while DJ gets this ready for you, let's talk about back in 2014. You mentioned earlier you risked everything and went and started Matrix. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like and what kind of pushed you to make that move?
Oh my God. Yeah. So that's a good question. Slow to one. So what pushed me to make the move was so like I said earlier, I was waiting for Nevada to adopt some sort of business model for cannabis, and they never built the model that was being done in California, where home growers were supplying dispensaries. So in 2013, they finally came up with regulations to start businesses, and I actually found out about it kind of late. I found out about it around, I want to say, February 2014. So at that point, I saw what it was. I started reading up on it, and I said, well, this is my one shot to get into the legal side of this business if I want to do it, because Nevada had made it pretty, they made it very obvious that they were only going to have one round of licensing, and there might not ever be another round. So
Right.
so that was it. So that's how I viewed it back in 2014 when I found out about this. I was like, this is going to be my one shot to make this happen. So that leads into where I worked, Kahunaville. I worked for a gentleman named David Tuttleman, and David was, a very good friend of mine back then. We became good friends in 1994 when I started working at Kahunaville. That's another long story. I don't get too into that, but so David, I always had my home grows out here, and David, when he would come out from Delaware, he would visit, probably once a month. And a lot of times would come out to my house out in Henderson and would look at my garden, and we'd get stoned and have dinner and whatnot. So one night we were talking, and he owns a home in Vermont, and he had said, Vermont is looking to legalize cannabis. Would you be willing to move to Vermont and start a business there with me. And back then I said, yeah, sure. This was years before, it actually became a business model here. And so that just, we talked about it, but nothing ever really came to fruition. And then when this came about in 2014, the first person I went to, I said, hey, David, screw Vermont. Nevada is going to be doing this, and Las Vegas is probably going to be in the mecca for cannabis. So why wouldn't we want to do it here?
Why not?
And at that time, he said to me, well, he's a very wealthy man, and his mother and father had both passed, and he was in charge of the family estate. So he said to me at that time, I can't get involved. I have too much on the line, and plus I'm too busy with my family. But he said, but I'll mentor you through the process and kind of help you start a business. And that was, he really didn't at that point in time. But so in February, that's when I got started. I just started reading everything I could in the paper, online, watching everything I could on the news, and just started to understand the business model of what it was going to actually look like here. And then actually went and paid an attorney $200 to basically tell me I was insane. Connor and Connor, they're still cannabis attorneys to this day. Derek Connor, I paid him $200 for a half hour of his time to tell him, to get some answers as to what this is going to be and how to get something started. And I walked into his office, and at the time, this was in April. Actually, no, it was in March. And because unincorporated Clark County was accepting their applications before the state was accepting applications for cannabis. So at the time, everybody was busy getting their licenses ready that was trying to get in unincorporated Clark County.
Right.
And I walk in his office, and there's people working on applications, and I swear to God, they're like freaking 3-4 inches thick.
Jeez.
And so I'm like, oh, F me, And so I walk in and I tell him what I want to do, and Derek basically told me that I have no chance of ever starting a business. It's he's like, look at these people; they're already getting started. It's going to take millions of dollars. At the time, North Las Vegas, City of Las Vegas, and Henderson had not announced that they were going to allow dispensaries or grows or anything in their jurisdictions.
Right.
So Clark County was really the only game in town at that, or unincorporated was the only game in town at the time. So. He says to me, just, sit back and wait for these businesses to get started up and try to land a job at one of them. And I remember walking out of his office like totally dejected, but at the same time, I was like, I'm not letting this stop me. I'm going to, this is my dream. I'm going to continue on. And so, and then very soon thereafter, City of Las Vegas announced that they were going to do dispensaries and grows. And then soon after that, North Las Vegas announced that they were going to do these grows.
Yep.
So, this is actually a pretty cool story, how I got started, not to toot my own horn, but so everybody was hiring attorneys, and I knew I couldn't afford an attorney.
For sure.
But a buddy of mine knew another guy that was applying for a license in Clark County and unincorporated. He already put in his application. And he was using a licensing specialist that specialized in getting gaming licenses and alcohol licenses. And to me, that made a whole lot more sense than hiring an attorney.
For sure.
Because this person's already doing this type of
Absolutely.
work.
Right.
Absolutely.
So her name was Serena Choi. And so I contacted Serena Choi just by phone. I didn't go and meet her. Told her I was a big investor. Didn't tell her I was a bartender on the strip. Just said, I'm a big investor looking to get into cannabis. And so, what do I need to do? And Serena said, well, the first thing you need to do is get a building. And I said, okay. She said, no investor, nobody's going to look at you seriously, and you have to have a property to apply with. So the first thing you need to do is lock up a building, because that's the hardest thing to get right now. Because Harsh Realty, which owns like 50% of the commercial real estate in Las Vegas, maybe in Nevada, they said right off the bat that they wouldn't allow any cannabis businesses operating under their properties. So that knocked out like half the properties right off the bat. So I then went to like 4 different real estate brokers. And again, acted like I'm a big investor and said, hey, I'm looking to invest in cannabis. Can you find me a building? Well, one of these guys found a building for me. And so I go and look at it. And, I just meet this guy. It was up in North Las Vegas. It was a great building. And so I did at the time, I said, okay, I'll take the building, right? I had nothing. But in real estate, you can put down what's called a letter of intent, an LOI, on something, and it basically holds property for 2 weeks, right? So that's what I did. I had him sign up an LOI, and now technically that building's mine, right?
Right.
And so at the same time, I had Well, I was doing a lot of back end work, and I was barely working at my job at this point. Like, I was able to get extra board people to cover my shifts there and everything, and I'm out there just trying to build this business up. I went to I was on online forums, growers forums a lot, and there was a consultant in Colorado that I hit up and said, "Hey, can you help me build a pro forma, basically a map of what a business looks like, numbers wise, because I need to understand the revenue streams and all this good stuff about how this actually works."
Right.
And I paid that guy like $1,200, and it was one of the better investments I made early on, because he built a performa that actually held accurate. Like, it was actually a very good performa. It was a very simple one. It didn't have a whole lot of line items, but at the same time, it was accurate. And then I put together what's called a prospectus, which is basically saying why you feel that you're able to do the job that you're trying to do and build the business you're trying to do. And then I put together somewhat of a business plan. And a buddy of mine out in California, who was tied into a bunch of different businesses out in California, said to me, "Hey, I have some friends that have dispensaries out here that might be interested in your project. Can you come out and meet them?" And this was like on a Wednesday. And I said, "Sure, when do they want to meet?" And he says, "Friday." I said, "So, okay." So I paid $1,000, got a plane ticket out to San Francisco, met these guys on a Friday at this really cool business park. It was all these food trucks. They, like, out in Cali, they had like this circle of food trucks in the middle of San Fran, and like we just met, and they said to me, "We've never seen somebody in this space with a prospectus and a performa and a business plan. That's really impressive that you have that already." And thanks. So they were interested in my project, and I said, "Well, I have a building. Do you want to come check it out?" So like, yeah.
Wow. And this was within the 2 weeks.
Yeah. So pretty much. So they come back out. They fly out. I rent a SUV. I rent a really nice Chevy Tahoe. Look like I'm a bigwig and everything. And I drive these guys out to the building, and they're like, "This is awesome. We want to invest in your company." It's like, great. So at the same time, I was going back and forth with David, because David was honestly the guy that I really wanted to have as a partner, because to me at the time, nobody was really on that level of professionalism that he was. He had just done a lot of great things in his life, and so I really wanted him as a partner. So I was really pushing him, and he even told me later on down the road, he was like, he'd get a call and be like, "Oh fuck, it's Evan again. Sorry."
No.
Okay, but
21 and older. No worries.
This is an adult
all right,
podcast.
sweet. Now it's gonna start flying. But yeah, I was constantly peppering him. Well, he has an apartment in City Center, right? And I was meeting with these guys, and they were staying at Planet Hollywood. And I said to him, I was like, "David, would you mind meeting with these guys just to kind of feel them out and get an idea of what you think of them?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." So we met him in a Starbucks at Planet Hollywood, and David came down with pen and paper, and literally just drilled into these guys to understand their business. He didn't just come to the meeting to just feel these guys out for Evan.
Right.
David came down there to try and get an understanding, because this was the first time he'd ever been put in front of people that were actually doing this. And so he starts peppering them with questions, and they're answering it all, and he's writing it all down. And then I saw the light bulb click in his head at that point in time, and he's like, I might be interested in this. So when these guys go off to back to California, they're going to be investors in the company, but David says to me, I'm kind of interested. And I said, "Okay, well, you know what? I have this licensing specialist that I've been talking to for a while now. Hadn't paid her a cent, but I kept talking to her on the phone, and she was kind of guiding me. But I knew she was getting sick of me calling her, because she wasn't getting any money from me.
For sure.
But I said to him, I was like, "Look, I have this licensing specialist. Why don't we go sit down with her, and so you can get a better understanding of what this is going to look like in Nevada?" And he said, "Okay." So I call her up, and she says, "Okay, but this meeting is going to cost you $800 because you've been wasting my time, and I'm not meeting with you."
For sure.
And I'm like, "Done, no problem at all. I'll pay you the $800," which I did, and that was definitely the best $800 I ever spent, because at that meeting, we go and sit down at a table like this, and I had the brochure for the building, and she says to me, she's like, "So have you locked up a building?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And she says, "Okay, can you show it to me?" And so I slide her over the paperwork, and she goes, "How tall is the ceiling?" And I says, 24 feet. And she says, "Well, that sucks." And I'm like, and David says to her, because David's built out, warehouses, and this is a beautiful warehouse. And he says, "Why does it suck?" And she goes, "Because you're going to run out of pot. You're not going to be able to grow enough." Now, you got to understand, back then, everybody thought this was going to be like the golden goose. People were going to be flocking to dispensaries, and shit's not going to stay on the shelves. It's going to fly. But So I saw, like, it was almost like seeing a light bulb go off over his head. And he was like, oh, okay. And at that moment, we walked out, and he's like, I want in. And that's how it all started. From there, because David brought with him a bunch of, so David, like I said, he's a very well-to-do businessman and has been doing this a long time. He's a little bit older than me. He's like probably close to 60 now. And he had done a deal. So this is segues into another kind of funny story. And stop me if I'm going too long. But
No, man, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Please,
but,
say
all
it
right,
up.
cool. So years and years, I'm growing, and David's telling me, man, I have a friend in hydroponics. I should introduce you to him someday. And I'm thinking, like, you know, he's like, it's in California, so I'm thinking like some hydro store owner in like LA or something, right? So when we're going through the application process, on the application, it said that you needed to have an expert in the field of cannabis, right? And there's no expert in the field of cannabis here in Nevada.
Right.
Like, at first we were like, Evan's our expert because he's a grower, but no. What Serena was telling us, no, you actually need like a consultant or somebody on your application. Back then, we didn't know who was going to get approved. It was kind of like, you know, it was like a big beauty pageant, you know what I mean? So we're trying to build the best team. So we start looking at consultants, and David says, you know, we don't want to deal with consultants because that's no way to do business. You're going to end up basically paying them everything you make. You know, you don't ever want to deal with consultants. So he calls me one night. He says, you ever heard of a guy named Larry Brook? And I said, that name sounds really familiar. And he says, well, have you ever heard of a company called General Hydroponics? And I said, yeah, of course. I use their nutrients. That's what I grow with. Like, that's the most popular nutrient in cannabis. They've been around since the 80s. He goes, well, the owner's a friend of mine. His name is Larry Brook, and I told him about the business we're looking to do, and he asked me to fly out to California and meet with him. So we're flying out to California next Thursday, and so that's what we did. We flew out to San Francisco, drove up to Sebastopol, California, and met with Larry. And it was like David had done a business deal with him 20 years prior to that, and they just had stayed in contact.
Right.
But they hadn't seen each other for a long time. So it was like when we met Larry at like this Indian casino somewhere in the middle of like Santa Rosa County or wherever the heck we were in California. And it was like two brothers that hadn't seen each other for 20 years. And then we went back to Larry. We stopped at a dispensary, went back to Larry's house, got stoned.
Hell yeah.
And in his killer man cave, this guy lives next to Les Claypool from Primus. And
Hell
these guys have a whole man cave. They jam out it and shit. It's just ridiculous. But we're up in this man cave and smoking weed. And then Larry says, you know, I want to bring in some people from GH into this. And so basically we formed a company in that meeting for the most part. But
That's
then,
awesome.
yeah, well,
Hell yeah.
it gets further though. So we had partners here that we were a week out from the application being due. Now this was months and months of work, right? Building these applications. Like those applications were insane. Like my application was 800 pages, and we had to build 16 of those. So yeah, and all in 3-ring binders, in a certain type of font, on recycled paper. The state really wrung you through the ringer to put these applications in. Man, it was tough. But so shit, I kind of lost my train of thought here for a second. Oh yeah, so hold on, let me remember that now real quick. So we were talking about David. Shit, I totally lost.
You guys were forming a team.
Yeah, we were forming a team. Thank you very much.
No worries.
You just saved me there. So, so we didn't have. We were a week out, and one of the owners that was supposed to be an owner here dropped out because his background check didn't check out. He had all kinds of shit on his rap sheet, and so he would have never gotten through the process. And so for the application, you had to provide your building plans, and then you had to provide the money to. So you had to have a building plan with a number associated to it, right? A build out like from an actual general contractor. This is going to cost you $5 million to build out, right? And then you had to show the liquidity in a bank account for the application. So they originally said that the applications had to be $250,000. You have to be able to show $250,000. That's bullshit. Like you had to show all of the build out costs. So we had to show like literally $5 million on paper. And one of our owners, one of the guys providing the money, dropped out a week before this. So we're like, we're fucked. Like we're screwed. You know, all this work is just down the tubes now. So we had to fly out to California to tell these guys, you know, we lost this owner. He's gone. And we don't have this $1 million. We need to figure it out. So we sat around a table, you know, they brought one potential investor to us, and he seemed okay, but, you know, there's a lot. It's just getting somebody to commit to $1 million is going to take you longer than a week, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, a day later, they call us up, and they're like, so you've heard of Scott's Miracle Grow, right? And we're like, yeah. And they say, well, you know that we're in the process of being bought out by Scott's Miracle Grow. And we said, yeah, you had mentioned that in the past. They said, well, the family from Scott's Miracle Grow is interested in investing in your project. Would you be interested in that? And for me, I'm going to be dead honest with you guys. That was such a mind fuck for me.
For sure.
Because I am about cannabis culture, man. I've been in this, been living it for a long, long, long time. And for me, and I've honestly never even talked about this stuff before, especially on a podcast. But for me, it was like
exclusive.
Yeah, it's exclusive. For me, it was like, well, I have the option of either living out my dream,
For sure.
or dumping it and saying fuck it because I don't want to deal with these people. So I talked to the guy. So Scott's Miracle Grow decided that they wanted to get into cannabis a while back, and they knew, though, that cannabis growers would not deal with Scott's Miracle Grow. Right. So what Scott said was, okay, we need to start buying up all the ancillary companies that feed the cannabis space. So that's what they've done, actually, to this day. Like Scott's now, they bought General Hydroponics was their first acquisition. They bought Botanicare. They bought Gavita. And then after that, they bought Sunlight Supply, which is the largest wholesale supplier to all of the all of the hydro stores all across the country. So they bought that, and they own it, and they changed the name to Hawthorne Gardening, right? So the Hawthorne CEO is a guy by the name of Chris Hagedorn. Chris is my partner at Matrix.
Okay.
So Chris became the partner with the family backing him. And so I started talking to Chris and started feeling him out really early on, and he just seemed like a really cool dude. He was an artist, he was a writer, very liberal, wasn't, really conservative, or, what I would thought Scott's people would have been. He was just a really down home guy. And I asked him, I was like, so let me ask you a question. I was like, what's it like? Because, for those that don't know, Scott's is the distributor for Roundup. So, and that's at the time that was Monsanto, which to me is like the devil. And so I asked him straight up. I was like, so what's it like dealing with Monsanto? How do you feel about that? Because this dude's pretty, kind of hippie-ish. And he's like, it's a real problem for me in my head. But he's like, they represent 30% of our revenue. So it's not like we can get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, so, but yeah, he kind of had an issue with it. But so I was like, okay, that's kind of cool that you're at least acknowledging it and, and seeing it for what it is. So I think even without that, I still would have said, okay, let's go for it, because, I didn't want to drop everything at that point in time,
right.
And go back to bartending and just give up my dream. So that's what we did. I got him on the application, and we got approved.
Wow.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
And that was just the beginning stages. That was just the application. Then there was design, there was construction, there was literally closing the deal. Our lawyer was the lawyer for Steve Wynn. He is Steve Wynn's estate attorney, right? And this dude is a corporate, he's a monster. He's awesome. And he told me that our deal was the hardest deal he's ever had to close.
Wow.
Yeah, because it took a year.
For sure.
So I could talk a little bit about that, but so after we got this application approved, we still didn't have a closed deal with the GH and the Scott's Miracle Grow people. So I'm doing all this work, and we ended up getting a building. It wasn't the building that I told you guys about. I got another building I had to find, and I had to go on the hook for that and give a personal guarantee that the rent would be paid for 5 years on that. And we didn't close our deal for a whole year. And initially, how we built Matrix was, every person, we had 8 owners, and each owner had to put in $40,000 seed money, and that covered the rent on the building, right?
Oh, okay.
Well, we were coming up to a point where all that seed money was gone, and the rent was going to be due, and we didn't have a closed deal with these guys. Right. And I'm not even working at that point. I had quit my job, and I was on the hook, man. I was like, I had spent my life savings. I was just, if this deal didn't close, I probably would have lost everything. I probably would have had to start all over again. Right. And it came up to the last minute, and they finally closed the deal. We finally closed it in
nail biter.
In June. Yeah, it was June 2015, I think, is when we closed, and we opened our doors in April 2016. That's when Matrix opened. So that whole process of getting the deal closed, and then we had the design, and the construction, getting NV Energy to run the power to our building. There were so many things that could have stopped this from happening, but fortunately it happened.
Man,
wow.
Talk about determination.
Damn,
brother.
dude.
Sheesh,
Yeah.
man. But I mean, we definitely did want to jump into more, especially with Fleur. But since we're already on Matrix,
Well, I gotta hit some bowl here.
Yeah,
Right?
dude. I've just been sitting here
You might
just
have to
reveling in the
chill
story.
in.
I smoked a whole joint to my head. This has been great.
You might have to remind me, by the way, after I smoke this, I might lose track again.
no worries,
That's
no
a
worries.
No,
product
it's
of
all
years and
good,
years
man.
of, you know.
Yeah.
Does this have a shotgun on it or no? Is there a
I
shotgun?
believe so. Yes, on
Oh, it's right
the
there, right
Yes,
there.
sir.
Okay, it's a little small.
these
But go ahead.
JVD hammer pipes, huh?
So I mean, we do have that, and I know you are just indulging now.
Ooh, that's
But since we were talking about
What?
Matrix, we do have
Yes.
a Banana Foster half gram as well. Were we interested in jumping into the G pen?
Of course.
What we think?
Yeah, you
Tommy
did say
boy?
he's a dabber.
Yeah, I'm
you
a
know?
dabber, man.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Let's
Well,
do it.
We got the flower, but yeah,
And,
let's
and
do
I
some
don't get any
dabs.
free Matrix dabs anymore, so
Yeah.
it's good.
There you go.
He's
It's good to get a
There you
free
go.
Matrix dab.
Go ahead. You're gonna have to. I'm not familiar with the G pen. I'm familiar with the student. It's really easy. You just spin it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's really cool.
but yeah. Well, that's awesome, dude. That's a really inspiring story. I mean, really just goes to show that, like, I mean, it's a grind, but if you focus on the end goal, you know what I
Yep.
mean, stay true to it, man. That's really
For
inspiring.
me, and like there's a lot more to it than that, but you know, there was a ton of times where I felt like, you know, really dejected and really down, and this isn't going to happen, but there was something that just kept driving me. My dad passed away in 2010, and this was 2014.
Sorry to hear about that, brother.
Thank you. And I kind of always felt like his hand was on my shoulder through it all. I know that sounds hokey,
No.
but you know, there was just so many things that could have stopped me from getting to where I am today. And I don't think it was just my persistence. Like, I do think that there were, and again, it sounds hokey, but there were forces at work behind me to help me get to where I am today. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
man.
said, there was just so many roadblocks that could have happened, and everything just kept falling into place, So, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see here.
Let's see how this works.
All right, smoking now. All you
You
gotta do
smoking?
is
We
rotate
good?
that thing
You
slowly.
want to go ahead and take this guy? First
so you
hits
just
here.
hit it?
It's going to fill it up, and it's going to...
We're gonna give it a couple rotations. We're gonna
See,
do
we
one
fill
more
her.
before we have you
Okay.
take that hit.
All right. I like it. Oh, this is cool.
Do me a favor, Tom. Do it. Give it a double click. Oh, it's gonna be on that.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, here we go.
See, I should have done my homework before the episode here.
We're putting our mouth on this thing, right? Or no?
You could do it without it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, that's the beauty of
Let's
the
cook it
student
now.
here. There we go. Let's rotate it. Now it's on.
There it goes.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, this is a terrible demonstration,
Go
but
ahead and rotate it right when it hits the bottom, my brother. It'll be
All
be
right.
pushing this smoke out now.
All right.
Yep.
Here we go. Ready?
this is a real dab.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and pull the.
Pull what? That?
Oh, yeah. Give me one.
Good.
Cool. Let's
And
do
then
this.
rotate. I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just like a normal bong, you gotta
like it.
remove these things.
That's awesome. Smooth, too.
Ooh.
You want-
Ooh-wee.
Rotate one more time.
Yeah, dude. Oh, I got you. Clear the chamber here.
I'll do another.
No, that's the. We're gonna fill this sucker a few times. Looks like it's still going.
Yep. There's still enough wax in there. It'll keep going. Yes, sir.
Oh, this one's a milky one. Look at that.
Hang on,
Oh, yeah.
give me a quick second. Go ahead and hold on to that. One more time.
There we go. This is the real one here.
Yep. Go ahead.
You ready?
Right, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Beam me up, Scotty. You know, that's how we do the
Sorry,
NuWu
guys.
Sessions.
You know, normal stoner stuff.
Yeah.
We forget.
Oh, yeah.
I did just smoke an entire indica joint to my face before
Everybody get Tommy
demonstration.
sky high.
Oh, that's good.
Woo! That's the best part about this podcast.
So yeah, this is the Banana Foster, man. Probably one of our
They did a good job.
top dabs that
That's
we
really
do
good.
have here at the Vegas Tasting Room.
Thank
You
you.
ready for another one here? Is there more in there? Or
Now we'll give this one a break.
Cool, that's fine. Yeah. Well, that's cool because that's a great segue into we just talked about Matrix and how you got there, but let's talk about how you came to work at Fleur. How did that happen?
So, great question. So, when I was consulting for a year with my own company called Red Ram Consulting, and I was working on a project out in Oklahoma. But I decided in December of 2018 that that project wasn't right for me, so I moved on from that. And then I really wanted to just be in Nevada. So I was looking for a gig in Nevada. I was talking to a few different grows about becoming their chief operating officer. But I had also been introduced to a gentleman named Jerry Velarde, who was one of the owners of Evergreen Organix / Fleur. And so he and I started talking, and he was running, he owned a grow that was an organic grow being run by the people that run GLP. And so damn, that stuff is good, by the way.
Right.
I'm actually like searching for my thoughts a little bit more right now. It's because usually it just flows, but right now it's kind of like taking me a minute to think of things.
No worries, man.
But
It's the
yes.
hybrid, man. They get you.
Yeah.
They get
So I was looking for a gig, and Jerry and I started talking, and he basically said that he needed some help with sales, and I had relationships with dispensaries that he wasn't able to get into. And then I also saw an opportunity that no one was producing rosin in the state. And I have a friend who I feel was like the best black market rosin producer that I'd ever seen and met, and he was just awesome. And so I approached Jerry and said, hey, you need help with sales. I can help you there. I'm looking to launch a rosin brand here. You could help me there. And so that's how it all started.
I see.
So, and then at the time also, my brother at Matrix, so when I started Matrix, I started that with my family and friends too. Like I brought in my brother, I brought in my mother, I brought in my closest friends that I knew I wouldn't have to fire because they had good work ethics.
Right.
And so, that all was really good. So with this thing too, I actually, damn man, that shit is good, man. I'm having a hard time
Yes, sir.
keeping
Yes,
my track
No
of thoughts
worries.
going here. So, yes, my brother was my GM at Matrix, and he was no longer with Matrix. And the person running the show at Fleur was a former accountant that didn't know anything about cannabis, and they were just having a lot of issues with her. And he was looking to replace her and move her to another job in another company he had. And so he asked my brother if he would be interested in that position, and he was. So he took that job, and then they hired, at the same time, they had hired me on to help with sales. Excuse me. So that's how it really all started. My brother took over the packaging and trimming department, and I was starting to run sales, and then started trying to get into starting this rosin company. And then there are other things that happened that I won't really discuss here on the podcast, but I ended up taking over the company in June of 2019. So I took over the entire operation of Fleur in June 2019 and became the director of cultivation at that point. And so at that time, the grow was in pretty bad shape, and so we had to build back up a team and build the soil back up and get a bunch of new strains in there, and that's what we've done. The last 2 years, we spent basically, it took about 6 months to get the soil really back on point, and then another year or so of developing new strains and getting them back into the rotation and all that good stuff. And that's what we did. We built that brand up from that point on. And sorry.
No.
Okay.
You're great.
And
No,
so
you're great.
I recently just was promoted to president of the company. I believe it's been about 3 months now.
It's awesome.
So, yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
exactly
Seriously.
was the next question was going to be like, how has that really changed? You go from, you just said you started as sales, then you are the director of cultivation, and now the president. So, those are 3 different jobs. How's your transition been so far?
As far as like the job itself, man, when I was director of cultivation, I was able to still kind of forget about my job a little bit when I go home at night, to some degree.
Right.
But now, no. Like now, I'm like waking up to 15 emails and 6 texts, and it just never stops. And that's the difference. Is I went from just running an operation to one division of an operation to taking over the whole company and everything that's involved with sales, marketing. Not just running a grow.
Right.
No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's a lot bigger.
I do have a question because starting from the hospitality background, this was kind of your goal, was to get up to a president type level. Now going through that goal, or now achieving that goal, how do you stay inspired every morning? What keeps you grinding to get to that next level? Now that, is there a next level that you are targeting, or what keeps you inspired? What keeps you going?
Oh man, I'm just a squirrel trying to get a nut, dude.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just grinding, and for me, it's always been about survivability.
For sure.
I don't come from a rich background.
Right.
I'm still like still grinding, man. Even at this level, I'm still, I'm still living just like everybody else is, And so what inspires me is taking care of my family, and taking care of the people that I'm building this with. Like that's the most important thing to me is like, and that's what's so cool about it is that, I brought friends and family into this.
Right.
And so like, I can never leave that.
Right.
And there's been times where things have been tough and I'm like, shit, man, do I really want to do this? But then I think about all these other people too. And it's like, I could never walk away from that
1,000%.
ever. And so that's a really good question because honestly, I'd never really thought about it and put it in the words.
Yeah.
But that's really, no problem. That's definitely the reason why. What keeps me going is just to lifting up the people around me. That's all I want to do.
Man, respect, man, dead ass respect, bro.
Hell yeah.
Thank
Seriously.
you. No, this is true. This is that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
That's the goal. I believe that's why most of us are in this industry. I believe that's why a lot of us targeted this industry because it could present that platform, man. And good on for you for getting there, man. Seriously.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's been awesome.
That's rad, man. No, it's really good. It's really inspiring. It's a good question. Good answer. So just sitting here after this LA Con, just like...
It's so funny, dude. Your eyes have just gone so...
I'm telling you guys. Did anyone else not smoke one of these pre-rolls?
No. I learned from the last episode. They set me up and gave me the indica. I was looking just like Tom.
That's cool. Welcome to NuWu Sessions.
I know, right? We have good stuff. Fleur works, man.
Hell yeah. Seriously. Testament to the product right here. Look at my eyes. Let's go.
He said, look at my eyes.
Now I got caught.
I'm the captain now.
Me. Yeah, that's right. Hell yeah.
My brother. So, for the future of Fleur, are there any, or what is your favorite strain that you are currently growing?
We just hit it, BTY. Well, yeah. So right now, there's a couple. So I got to talk about this one, Bushido OG.
Oh, man.
Bushido OG.
Probably store popular.
So then that has a story behind it too, and it's a really cool story, and I'll tell it real quick if you don't mind.
No worries.
So our grow manager, his name is Sven Bloom. Stephen Bloom, we call him Sven. Right. He used to work at Desert Grown Farms and the apothecary shop, and he ran into a guy named Win Yang, right? And he was nicknamed Master Win. All right. Master Win was from Burma, was a refugee, came through, Myanmar, went through like incredibly turbulent times back in the 80s and 90s. This dude like literally fought guerrilla warfare like this. This was a real G.
Yeah, right.
And he moved over here and it was super into cannabis and, got into the cannabis industry over here in Nevada and became a mentor for my man Sven.
For sure.
Okay. And this guy, from everybody that I've talked to and heard about this guy was just an amazing dude. He moved out to California. Oh, and another thing was that he was super into the code of the samurai. The code of the samurai is called Bushido.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so this dude moved out to California a couple years ago with his 2 dogs and ended up dying in the wildfires out there. And so Sven came to me and, told me the guy's story and, and we were developing the strain that actually Sven had done a breeding project with a buddy of his. So Bushido OG is a cross of Wookiees and Cream and Lemon OG. Ooh. And so Sven had sent a buddy of his the Wookiees and Cream. Buddy crossed it on a Lemon OG, sent the seeds back to Sven. We pheno hunted them at Fleur and then ended up finding Bushido OG and Katana OG.
That makes sense.
Same seed stock, but they had different terp profiles, and they were both killer. And we were like, okay, I can't throw that one away. I got, so we kept both. But so Sven came to me and said, I'd really like to name this after my friend Master Win. Told me the story, and I'd like to name it Bushido OG. And I was like, dude, done. Like that's incredible. So that's what we did. That's why that strain is named Bushido OG. And that one to me is like our needle in the haystack because she's testing. We'll hit tests on her at like 30, 31% with a 4% terpene profile, which is just insane. And it's super, super sativa dominant.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a really good strain.
For sure.
So,
Man, that's amazing, man. I'm even a bigger fan now.
Yeah, dude. This has been good.
Inspired by other people, and you include that in your company,
Dude, I tell people all the time, you guys got to come take a tour. I love giving bud tenders. Any bud tender out there works at dispensary, any dispensary management, we give tours. Like, we don't hide anything. We got nothing to hide. We grow organically. Everything is 100% clean. We don't have any issues. We don't have like powdery mildew or spider mites or anything. It's just all 100% beautiful.
Dude, we're
awesome.
We're gonna make that happen
for sure.
100%.
You can do a podcast from there if you want.
Ooh, Ooh, say less.
Yeah, right. Absolutely,
Say
absolutely. We'll
less.
definitely make something happen for sure.
Let's see. Can you tell us about the team that you've cultivated at Fleur? I mean, you've already talked a lot about your team that you have with Matrix, but
Happy to. Yeah. I mean, so, we've built an amazing team there. As I told you about Sven Bloom, he was there before I was, and that dude was like the guy keeping that grow afloat. He
For
just
sure.
didn't have the support behind him.
for sure.
And then I brought in another guy by the name of Nate Whedon, and he was the guy I was telling you about with the rosin.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he's an amazing. But he also, Nate has a degree from UNLV. He's a scientist, and he had been studying growing in living soil for many years, like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And so when I took this grow over, I had only been doing hydro style grows. I'd always wanted to do organics, but when you have the biggest hydro company in the world backing you, there's no chance in hell you're going to be doing
For sure.
organics. But so I had to have that type of knowledge behind me, and immediately Nate was already on board with the rosin, and it was funny. I literally called Nate up. I was like, "Hey Nate, I think I got a better opportunity for you than rosin." And so we met, and I told him about what it was, and he was working at and not NBK Labs. He was working at one of the local labs here in town. He was a microbiologist at one of the labs.
Gotcha.
So, and this guy already understands testing and all that, which is on the cultivation side, super challenging, right? If you don't know what you're doing, it's hard to get your products to test, especially test positive. Test without failing the test. Jesus.
You're good. You're good. So all these COVID tests, man. Everyone's
without especially
right.
growing organically, because there's a lot of stuff in the soil that if it gets on the flower, it will cause a failure at the testing level. So I had to have that knowledge right away, and there was Nate. It was meant to be. It was perfect because I had him, and as soon as I took that grow over, I brought him in, and that's when that started from there. Nate basically quit the lab, gave them 2 weeks, and he was with us. Brought my brother in.
All
right. And now we have built around. Oh, and then I also brought my facility manager from Matrix down to Fleur, which is great for him because he lives in Henderson, and we're 7 minutes from him. And this poor guy was driving 40 minutes in North Las Vegas every day.
Yeah.
So he's happier. As pig and shit. He's happy as it gets.
Right.
So, but then we've also what I did was with this business is we have great cultivators. These guys are just, we only run in the grow with 2 cultivators plus Nate and Sven, and it's a 30,000 square foot grow. It's big. And then we have a harvest team. My man, this guy Will, he just kills it every day. He's awesome. And then we have this girl by the name of Shantae, and Shantae in our packaging, and she's just running our packaging like a champ. And she started off as a porter, basically a janitor. And so like I said, I like lifting everybody up, and that's what we do there. So we start everybody.
She goes
as a
crazy on your
packager.
social media too.
Oh yeah, no, she's awesome.
Yeah.
You see Shantae,
Yeah.
she's amazing.
Yeah.
She is so damn talented, man.
For
And that's
sure.
we see talent, and we want to feed it.
Yep.
You know what I mean, and let it grow and help it rise, and that's what we're doing. And we have a lot of people like that in the organization. Shantae being one of them for sure.
Hell yeah.
And I can't say enough about the people that we have there. And then we have a night crew. This dude Joel that runs like this social media program. It's in hip hop and stuff. This dude's like a go getter, but at the same time just wants to come and roll joints at night. Just you just have a
Hey,
bunch
there
of
you go,
really
man.
really good
Hell
people.
yeah.
Like that was one of the things that I had to combat when I took over Evergreen and Fleur, was that we had like this like corporate giant mentality about our company, and like we're not that at all.
Right.
Like we're literally a mom and pop place. We're owned by a family.
Right.
And
I was gonna say family-owned
and the
business.
daughter works, like she's our VP of operations, and it's literally a mom and pop shop.
Dope.
So
Hell
anyway,
yeah.
That's
Man,
cool.
that's love, man.
That's
That's
awesome.
what's up.
Great team.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your future goals now that, again, you're the president? It's gone full
Yeah.
circle. What's the next step? What are you trying to do?
Oh gosh, build this company, man. I wanna make it just one of the top brands in the state. Everybody talks about going national and stuff. For me right now, it's just all about focusing on Nevada and building it up, because look, what you guys are going to be doing here, just think about, like I said earlier, it's like, think about where we're going to be in 5 years from now here
Absolutely.
in Nevada.
Right.
Like, to me, it's like, I don't need to focus on other things like outside of here. For me, this is the Mecca, and this is where I want to be, and this is my home, and I love it here. So
yeah.
as far as president and what I want to do with this company, I want to build Fleur up. I want to build Evergreen up. And we're also going to develop some different brand names, because we are producing a lot of flower that's it's hard to get the market to absorb just one brand when you're producing so much.
For
Right.
sure.
And so, we're going to start coming up with different brand names for our stuff too, and just make this a multifaceted company, man. It's kicking it,
It's awesome.
killing it.
Yeah, grow it, right?
Yeah, I should also mention, by the way, our salesperson Astrid, who you guys have met, but she's
Oh,
just
yeah.
killing it.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Like they're just out there just killing it every day. They're grinding hard, man.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah.
That's
It's
awesome.
great. That's an inspiring story, man.
Dead ass. Well, I mean, we kind of
I
ran
think
time.
we
a little
touched
bit.
everything. I
Damn.
think we're there.
Yeah,
Do we?
man.
That was
I think we
easy.
wanted to end with one of these little s'mores powered by Evergreen Organix chocolate.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
down.
We'll go ahead. We'll
right.
make all of our plugs. Where are all the channels? Where can they follow you? And we'll do some
Thank you
dabs,
so much,
right?
Raven.
Oh my
Awesome.
God! Look at
She
that.
made a whole presentation too.
Wow.
And these are 10
Everybody?
milligram.
10 milligrams per serving.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely Evergreen Organics milk chocolate.
Thank you. This looks great.
There you go, buddy. Yours.
Hell yeah! Wow, thank
All
you.
right, some napkins for you guys.
Definitely gonna need those. Thank you.
100%. So where are the channels? Where can they find you, Evan?
So on Instagram, and it sucks, I'm shadow banned.
Oh man.
Yeah, I feel like
they I get a bunch of people impersonating me on Instagram. People
Oh,
out
yeah.
there, please don't ever try to buy weed through Instagram. You will get ripped off.
Why
There
do
is
y'all
not
do that? I don't understand.
one
Yeah.
person on Instagram selling weed legally, or just legitimately.
Yeah.
They're gonna screw you over. So I get a
100%.
bunch of people using my name and my pictures and acting like they're me and trying to sell people weed. That ain't me. So me on Instagram, my name is evan.matrix.mmj. That's who I am. But you have to type out the entire name, or else it doesn't show
Yeah.
up because I'm shadow banned.
Yep.
It really sucks.
Like everyone here.
Yep.
Can't even
There
see
you
him.
go. And then
Yeah, pretty
Fleur,
much. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Fleur is Fleur, Fleur, Cannabis, NV, Nevada, NV. So Fleur Cannabis NV is the Instagram page for that. And then Evergreen Organix is Evergreen Organix with an X at the end of that. Cool.
There you go.
Appreciate
Keeps cool.
it.
Put
Yeah.
the X.
Heck yeah.
Right.
You can also follow, we have some growers posting stuff too. Sven, it's SVEN, Sven Will Flourish with
Hey.
FLEUR, and he puts the underscores in between each word. And then Nate does the same thing. He has smoke. Nate's last name is Whedon.
Oh, okay.
That's a great last name.
I know,
It's
right?
perfect. It's
Yeah.
like perfect, right? Well, I got the two guys. My grow manager's name is Bloom.
Yeah, that's right.
BLUM, and then Nate Whedon. And so
There you go.
Sven is BLUM,
Looks like they were
by the
born
way.
for this.
And Nate's name is smoke_some_Whedon. Pretty
There
slick.
you go.
That's it.
There you go.
Anyway, yeah. So
Awesome.
time-
Well, let's try
dive
these,
into
and
this.
then we'll do a dab, right?
Yes.
Right, 1000%.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is
Marder,
definitely
I
going to
knew
be
this was
sloppy.
gonna happen. This is why we end with this, right?
1000%.
All right, man. Cheers.
Folks, y'all got to come through and try one of these. I promise you. It's worth it.
Well, it's made a huge mess.
Yeah, it's messy, but it's
Jesus.
damn good. Damn good.
You got chocolate everywhere.
Yep. Oh wait, so is that chocolate infused chocolate that's dripping down? That is,
Yep.
isn't it? Oh man.
Yeah,
Is
I'm-
that cinnamon
I'm
on
wearing
there?
it.
Yeah, good. Oh man.
Cinnamon? What?
I like the cinnamon touch.
Dude, this is a huge mess, but I'm glad we're doing this. This is a great finisher. This is like for the credits, right? We're just like, look, guys, this is what it looks like when you eat a s'mores in the Vegas Taste Room. Come on by.
Yeah. You'll be hitting the bathroom after. Oh wait.
Yep. I'm making a huge mess.
You know, I think. Do I have a ring of chocolate around my lips? I feel like I do.
I feel like I do too.
Dude.
I'm gonna take a Molokai on this one. I'm gonna wait.
Yeah. I think this is how we wrap this. Thanks for following NuWu Sessions, guys.
Appreciate you coming through. Make sure you like, share, subscribe,
All that
share
stuff.
to all your weed head friends. We'll see you soon. We out.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. I'm like,
Yeah,
"You
man.
Put your mouth out. He's like, no.
Yeah. So I had to smoke the whole
I don't
joint.
get it,
We
man.
don't
I
share
would've-
joints. Damn. You're right, though. We're not doing indicas on this show anymore.
Yeah, I
dude.
told you,
Fucking
man.
You remember
straight up.
steamrollers, right?
Yeah,
Like, big
1000%.
old steamrollers. So, like, when I first moved here, we had this party at my house. This really, really cute girl. We were out on my porch smoking, and we're doing a steamroller. And she comes out, and she's like, "How do you use this?" And I was like, "You put your mouth around it." I'm sorry.
We have it here at the dab bar.
Yeah.
We have it here at the dab bar all the time. They're like, "Oh, this is my dab." No, back up. Get away from my rig.
Yep, and that's why we sanitize after
All right,
we
we stumbled on something different.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that was amazing, man.
Do we need a round of dabs? I don't know.
Yeah,
100%.
give them a fat dab before we get out of here.
That was a lot of fun. How long we go?